Afternoon, PlayBASIC coders. Let's look at the latest work in progress. This is a revision of the if defined and if not defined directives. What are they? Well, these weird statements here in blue. These are compile time statements. This logic is occurring during compilation, not at runtime. So this code is either optionally included in the program or removed from the program. That's our principal idea here. You might have seen the if blocks, these end if, whatever. These ones support actual expressions, so you can have a constant expression or a literal expression, if you want to call it that. So you can have something here times this or whatever. It would evaluate the expression to a true or false, and then whatever's in here gets included in the program or it doesn't. So if I have some constants here or some literal expressions based on something else in the program, what I use a bit is you can do it with function names. You could go, give me the index of this function. But you could use that really to detect if a function exists at compile time, which is handy for when you're building libraries or optionally calling code between projects. So you might have a bit of library code, an include file, in other words, that does a bunch of jobs, and then sometimes you might need some test code patched into that, sometimes not. This is one way you could kind of do that anyway. The if defined is more about whether this token exists. So this is not an expression. This is just we're asking, the compiler is asking, we're asking the compiler, hey, has anything been declared as cool, as the word cool within the statement? If that's the case, since this is the if defined, we'll include this code here and output it. So we can use this to detect pre-existing things in our program from, in this case here, cool is a function. It's down at the bottom here somewhere. There it is there. So we're effectively going, hey, if this program includes a function called cool, hey, do something in here. What about if this is a constant? Or we can detect that too. Here we've got a little bit of messing around, because what got me onto this was that some of these behaved strangely, or they weren't that easy to understand what they were doing. It's much more black and white as what's happening. This is detecting if the keyword you give it exists within the program. It can be a command name, a function name, a type name, a constant, a variable name, a label name as well, and they're scoped as well. So for whatever scope you're working in, it will check if it's looking for a label, it will check, is this a label within the scope? And so getting back to what I was saying before, is that what I noticed was that in old versions of PB, this would break, because when it sees this here, it would scan ahead, do a raw text level scan for this end if token, and this would break when it's within a comment. Another one that would break it too is if you had a string literal, hello, end if, whatever, they would both break it. It should be fine. The program it's not visually interesting. That seems fine. So in old versions, this wouldn't work anyway. In fact, most of these comparisons here wouldn't work, period. It couldn't do this. Anyway, we can detect if, this one's checking if this keyword here is used as a label. If it is, we do whatever we need to do. So maybe you can have like a selective go-to there if you wanted to. If that exists, start a program. In this case here, that would pretty much kill the program, because it would just keep running forever. So we'll avoid doing that. we're checking if this thing has been declared as an integer, float, string, and this is my personal favorite actually. You can tell if it's a type name or a command. That's the other one there as well. So it should help us write more robust libraries that can be shared between people that may use the same structures. A classic one, as I've got up here, is this my vector thing. I'll give you an example. Let's say we added in this program here. Let's say we added manage project. Just add something. Yeah. We're just adding a second file to the project. Now, if I declared my vector in here, we have two declarations of the same thing under the same keyword, don't we? Right. So this would break. It's telling us that this declaration name is invalid. It probably should say it's a redefinition of this name here. So that error could be improved, I would think. But if we do this, if not defined, my vector today, we declare it. So we do it in here as well. So we build this, whichever version of that statement is seen first, we'll declare it. And then when we hit the second version of that statement, we will ignore it. Probably easier to see in the debugger what's happening with the overall source code. So we'll hit stop. When you have different source files in your project, all of this code is effectively appended to the end of the previous file. So it works left from right. The leftmost file is compiled first. The rightmost file is at the end of this and compiled last. So if there are keywords or things defined in a previous file, they can have an impact on the next file. This is basic after all. Pretty much everything is like global scope. So sometimes that's, most of the time it's no big deal, but sometimes if you want to share code around between even your own projects, you can run into this kind of collision problem. It can be a bit painful. So this will help with that. The if defined, if not defined, they'll help with those kind of things. Now they're not infallible. The way the compiler works is kind of, some things are picked up during pass 1, some things picked up during pass 2. So I don't think we can exclude functions with this, or we shouldn't be able to exclude functions with this for the time being. I'm not sure which version of the Fraser supports this. In old versions of PB, you couldn't do this. You couldn't have comments around functions. I think it was expanded at some point. Okay, so yeah, that worked. And we took this out here. Now we'll be able to see where's cool. We shouldn't be able to print cool because there should be no keyword that's using that name, and there's nothing. I don't think you can wrap if expressions around those things. No, you wouldn't be able to. The directives are processed during pass 2. So pass 1 picks up the function declarations and obviously has some logic in there to follow multi-line comments. Old versions of PB couldn't do that. I think it was added, maybe in the 165 strand or the 164 late in that era. Given we are, rounding off the old version here, I can't see a way of having a directive in that process without actually having a full-on phrase during pass 1. And that might be a bridge too far for the old version. So we might have to, just go, well, we just can't do that in this version of it. But for the time being, I mean, just having that for me is really handy. So when I write libraries and at the top of the library I'm going to have a bunch of common types. I generally have like a vector type or maybe a list type or something like that. Or that's kind of where I'm using a common approach across different, and those structures are the same in different files. So what's the point of having the same structure declared as different names in different places? It's silly. Alright dudes, that should be enough to confuse the living hell out of you. It does round out some good features in PlayBASIC. This one in particular is one that is used in libraries that come with PB. You may never have actually seen it. Another one that comes to mind actually is constant. So you could actually do this kind of thing around your constant. So you go, if not defined A, let's declare it as this. Yeah, because between programs, between libraries, you might have very common constants. One of them that pops up a lot is if you do things with the Windows system behind the scenes, you're probably going to have includes that might have certain kind of Windows constants included in them or something like that. And sometimes those sets of constants can appear in different places to make them easier to compile and run separately. When I talk about a library, I'm talking about one file that has everything it needs to compile by itself. It doesn't require any external things from it. So it might have its own functions, do stuff or whatever. But in here, it's never going to call out to some other function or use data structures that are outside of here. It'll only use the things that are inside here. So that means then it can be just included in another project and you can just call the functions as if they're part of your own project. That's the way they work. They're not perfect, but they're okay. But this will make them that little bit better again. Yeah. Alright, programmers. I'll see you next time, PlayBASIC people. Bye.